Sports Talk. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving morning. I'm your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk, and welcome to a special live edition of NFL Matchups. Now, typically you guys are used to seeing me on Sunday mornings, but today, because I was busy this week, I did not have an opportunity to record the episode, so I figured, why the hell not? Come on here live real quick, get you guys ready for all of the Thanksgiving Day giving games, and get you locked and loaded as I normally would with my NFL Matchups episode that would be on YouTube. But today I decided let's go live with this thing today and make sure I get caught up and stay on track with everything NFL related. And as usual, on my NFL Matchup show, if you've never watched it before, we'll be going over what we learned previously about some things in Week 12. Then we're going to jump right into my Real or Not segment, followed up by my Week 13 predictions and previews, and then wrap up the show with my fantasy impacts to get you guys ready for the fantasy season with playoffs. Playoffs is approaching too. I believe 2 weeks away from the playoffs. So if you are right in the middle of it, like I am in my league, you might want to stick by and listen. So, but appreciate you guys for stopping by. Without further ado, man, let's get into some NFL matchups.
We're going to be here all day, baby. I like this kind of party. I like this kind of party, baby.
Welcome back in, man. Happy Thanksgiving Day to all of you guys out there. If you're watching, please make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Grid Network YouTube channel. Also, check me out on my YouTube page at Clutch Sports Talk Podcast, man. Doing a lot of things there. Appreciate you guys for stopping in. And if you're in the comment section, if you're watching, man, drop a comment. We got somebody in here already says, Jesse Winchester said, "What's up, buddy? What's up, Jesse, man? Happy Thanksgiving Day to you and yours. Appreciate you guys for stopping by." Listen, you know, this is one of the better times of the year. You know, especially if you're a football fan, right? You got high school football, you got college is ramping up with the playoff, you got the NFL action. You know, it's football from wall to wall. You know, and I want to give a shout out before I move on to two boys that I've coached. One of them, I believe, 5 and 6 years old. They had an opportunity to win a state championship here in the state of Nevada for the 4A division from Mojave High School. So shout out to Demir and D'Amico, a.k.a. Chalk Zamora. They accomplished something in their freshman year. They got their varsity letters this year as true freshmen, and they made an impact on their team's success, which helped contribute to winning a state championship. So shout out to them, man. So I was doing that on Tuesday, and now we got football to talk about today. So check this out, man. So if you've never watched an NFL Matchups episode before, I'm going to kind of give you a quick tour. What I typically do is there's a couple things that maybe catch my eye on Sunday. I jot them down, and I make it part of what we learned this past week. So the first topic I want to talk about today is what we learned about the Texans. Right now, they're coming off of a pretty bad loss, I would say, to a division rival. The game was close. A couple of things that really stood out for me and has stood out for me for the last couple of weeks with them is that CJ Stroud is really struggling this year. I'm still a fan of him, but he's struggling. You know, I figured, well, they got Nico Collins back, should be a little bit better. I don't know, man. He's still, you know, the last 4 games have not really been good for them. And to me, the Texans are starting to lose that luster that they've had going into the season as one of the better AFC teams. Do I still think they make the playoffs? Absolutely. But to me, they've fallen. They're not on the same level, of course, with the Chiefs right now, the Buffalo Bills who are gaining steam, even the Ravens who will continue to win. It may not look pretty for them too. But right now, I feel like the Texans and teams like the Chargers are kind of like neck and neck, or the Chargers have gained some ground, right, too, although the Chargers did lose to the Ravens. But still, but as far as the Texans are concerned, you know, CJ Stroud threw 2 interceptions this past weekend. The defense is a bend but don't type of break type of style of defense at this point. Will Anderson is still coming up big. He's coming off an injury. And then missed opportunities as well. You know, what's his name? Kaimi Fairbairn missed a game-tying field goal that eventually would have probably sent the game into overtime, maybe give them a chance to win the game. You listen, at the end of the day, this team is not living up to the expectations that a lot of us, including myself, have put on them. What do they need to do? Obviously, it starts with the quarterback play, and CJ Stroud knows it himself. He said it. He's like, I got to play better. He's suffering a very, very real case of the sophomore slump. Teams have film on him, and definitely he's struggling to get those wins that they once were getting last year. So, it's still, we still got a ways to go. Well, listen, we're week 13, we're a couple more weeks left. They're still sitting on top, I believe, of the NFC South, if I'm not mistaken. Can they clean some things up? Yeah, absolutely. Some of their losses have been close losses, right? You look at the Lions game that they lost a couple Sunday nights a couple weeks ago, this past weekend. So what I've learned from them so far is that they need to bounce back, but they definitely don't have that same mystique. And granted, their schedule is a little bit harder than it was last year. That's how it tends to go down a lot of times. So do I think now they're a Super Bowl contender? No, I don't think so. I think the road still has to go through Kansas City, maybe even Buffalo at this point, maybe even Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh is doing their thing. So, they'll make the playoffs, but there is some cause for concern if you are a Texans fan in the state of Texas, and it's not looking good for them. They're gonna have to clean it up there. So, okay. Also, what I learned this past week in week 12, what's up with the Commanders, man? Like, they were on this tear, right? No one even expected them to go on the win streak that they were on. Everything was looking good. Jane Daniels was playing phenomenal, MVP candidate, offensive rookie of the year. That was a shoo-in. Now you got guys like Bo Nix who have kind of, I wouldn't say supplanted him, but they're definitely neck and neck at this point, right? Cliff Kingsbury offense is struggled heavy mightily against Dallas's defense last week. And let's just be real, Dallas's defense is not great. And they still struggled against them, right? So, and the reason, and this was such a bad loss for the Commanders, is that the fact that the Cowboys are not a good football team. That's been established. And you allow them to come into your house and they beat you. Now, it was a crazy set of events that took place at the end of that game, but nonetheless, you got a missed extra point. You got, special team gaffes. Then they have a chance to tie the game after that crazy touchdown that they scored with Terry McLaurin. But it boils down to the offense. I think the defense, for the most part, did their thing. There was some big plays that was given up by their defense, but overall, the offense didn't kind of balance out what the defense was giving them. And the offense, to me, man, to me, when I watch them play, I don't watch too many Commander games, but when I do, for me, the focus is get the ball to Terry, scary Terry. You got to get him going fast and in a hurry, right? To me, I think he is the ignition to that offense, right? You got a young quarterback. I know Zach Ertz has been kind of doing his thing a little bit there too, but I think Scary Terry is the guy that they need to focus on a little bit, and they did it. So, like I said before, Jaden Daniels, I still think he has a chance to turn things around and maybe salvage what was looking like a very promising rookie campaign. Not to say that he's a bum, right? He's done a lot of great things so far as a rookie quarterback in the National Football League, better than some other quarterbacks that have been starting this past season. But like I said, you look at Bo Nix in the West, the way he's kind of rising up, right? He's finding his groove. Sean Payton is giving them an identity. At first, this basic offense for the Commanders, we were praising that, right? But now maybe teams are looking at the film and they're like, it is basic, and we can shut that down. That's exactly what Dallas did, right? So, do I still think Jaden Daniels is the front runner? Yeah, but it's very close. I think a lot of it will dictate what happens this upcoming weekend. But as far as the Commanders are concerned, they're not going to win this division. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are head and shoulders better than everyone else in this division, right? And they proved that in a head-to-head matchup already. Cowboys ain't gonna make no noise. We all know the Giants are a dumpster fire. So if they have any chance of trying to make the playoffs, man, it's gonna have to probably come from winning the division. And I just don't think that's the case off the top of my head. So, cause for concern is just like the Texans as well. Teams that maybe, well, the Texans were a little bit more promising because they actually had a deep run last year, but the Commanders, no one expected them to be where they're at. So, like, if you're a Commanders fan, are you that disappointed? Because no one expected you guys to even be here at this point. And they're still in the mix, right? So we'll have to wait and see with them. But we'll talk about their matchup later on here on NFL Matchup. So, and then finally, another thing that I learned or was watching, Bryce Young, man, like, I'll be the first to admit, like, I didn't think he was going to be any good, right? Dave Canales came in. I thought, okay, all right, he's a quarterback whisperer of some sorts. It didn't start off well. He got benched. Andy Dalton kind of came and did his thing, but now he got hurt. He's not effective anymore. They got to put Bryce Young back in. And even up until now, like they don't really name him the starter. Like they just say, well, he's going to start this week, but he's not the starter. Shout out to Bryce Young, man. He didn't listen to the naysayers. Maybe he can actually play, right? This past week against the Kansas City Chiefs, he faced about 38% when he dropped back blitzes on 38% dropbacks. Like that's a lot, man. And that's what most defensive coordinators are going to do, especially when you got a guy like Spagnuolo who loves the blitz. It's a rookie quarterback. Or a younger guy. He's going to do that. And he withstood it, right? He went toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes. Now they didn't get the win, but it said a lot about him as a player. Maybe he can't play. Is he going to be a franchise quarterback? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so still, but I can see some building blocks there for Carolina. I will say this about Carolina. Has he earned his starting role for the rest of the year? Absolutely. Like, let the guy finish out the year. Obviously this ain't a great quarterback draft upcoming. So depending on what you do, if they continue to maybe try to eke out win some games, I don't know, man. I still think that maybe they need to move off of him anyway. But from what I did see, though, he did earn his spot the rest of the year. Maybe he can continue on as a backup, maybe go to a better situation where he can learn a little bit more. But like I said, he played his ass off in that game, man. And shout out to him because, Kansas City, although they haven't been playing great, that's still the defending champs at the end of the day, right? That's still the defending champs. And so he did show some gumption. I will say that, because at first I was like, this guy should never play in the National Football League anymore. And he kind of proved me a little bit right. Now, don't take what I'm saying and say, oh, well, Ryan thinks that he's going to go out and just win MVP. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that he's earned the right to be in the NFL for the time being. And maybe if he goes to the right situation, or they can continue to build around him, and maybe we can see what happens with him moving forward into the 2025-26 season. So, all right. That's what we learned a little bit this past week in the NFL. Let's talk about my real or not. It's one of my favorite segments on the episode, where I basically will present a statement and I'll tell you if it's real or not. It's kind of like an overreaction reality type of deal there. So first things first, real or not, are the Vikings NFC title contenders? Real or not? Let's talk about it. Now, the Vikings are 9-2 at this point. They just won a close game over the Bears, and they've had a lot of close games. I will say that. But one thing I will say, they've won their last 4, but these victories have come against teams that are not good, with losing records. Now, their strength of schedule is going to steadily increase here the last couple of weeks of the season. And that will determine whether or not this team is legit or not, right? I mean, really, so the only real test that they've had, they've lost. They lost to the Lions, right? They've eked out games against like the Bears, things like that nature. So are they real contenders? I'm gonna say nah. So the Vikings are not true contenders. Why? Because I feel like Detroit's still ahead of them. You got the Eagles that are fast. They're soaring quickly to get to that top spot with the Lions. So no, I don't think they have a legitimate chance to be NFC title contenders, just because I don't trust them at this point. The quarterback play is still a little shaky. It was a little bit better this past week with Sam Darnold. Didn't turn the ball over, if I'm not mistaken, but not sure if I can trust them down the stretch. So are they title contenders? I'm going to say nah on that one. All right. Excuse me. Early in the morning here. Next, real or not, Brian Daboll will be fired after the season. Real or not? Let's talk about it. Giants, man, we all know their exploits this past week, and even extending into the offseason with their GM, Joe Shane. And we've all seen it now. If you're on social media, you've seen the clip. Hell, a lot of us remember that clip when we were watching the Hard Knocks offseason, where they were all in the room, all his yes men, and only one true hero stepped up and said, is someone not going to pay this guy? Somebody will, right? You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, well, no, he costs too much, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? That decision, not going to say that if they had kept him, they would have been winning a bunch of games, but still, probably would have been in a better shape than they are now. And I think Brian Daboll has a lot to do with that too, as well, right? So, and then the guy that they love, Malik Neighbors, they drafted him. He's talking shit now about the organization, which I kind of expected that from him anyway. You can kind of tell that he's that kind of dude anyway. But long story short, they put their faith in Daniel Jones, and including Brian Daboll, because I believe that he thought he can save him, right? He thought he was a Captain Save-A-Ho, and he wasn't. And then so instead of going out and maybe getting another quarterback, I forgot where they picked that, but maybe try to move up, maybe get a Drake May, maybe try to get Daniel, somebody, right? We all knew they were going to get Caleb Williams, right? Because he was going to go number one. But my God, man, the fact that they paid him, they kept him, thinking that this was going to be it, and then you let Saquon go, who Saquon was a very vital portion of this offense, right? I'm getting texts already. That it really just it kind of damned them for the rest of the season, right? So I get it. Brian Daboll is just the coach. He's not the GM, but I felt like him and the GM Joe Shane were in collusion there a little bit. And of course, I think to answer the question, real or not, will Brian Daboll be fired after this season? That's going to be real. I think that the Mara family, their representation, they're pissed off, and I believe Joe Shane will get fired too, just of all the things that have took place. They thought they were going to be cheap, try to save some money, but in reality, your decisions will lead to your own firing, and that's what's going to happen. I feel, and it's too bad for Brian Daboll because I think he's a good coach. I just think he was in a bad situation. I think he'll get another chance in somewhere else because some other coach is going to get fired. So, but he won't be a Giant. He won't be the Giants head coach going into next season. So, all right, final real or not. This is a big topic of debate. I've seen people go 50-50 on this one. Real or not, the 49ers are in danger of missing the playoffs. Let's talk about it. Now, 49ers are still one game out of the NFC West spot, right? And why is that important? Because they're not going to make a wild card if they don't. They're not going to make the playoffs unless they win this division. That's a fact. Like that's it, right? A couple of things that are going against them. Brock Purdy's injury might be a little bit more intense than what we expected. We saw the guy out there, was it Brandon Allen right there last week in against the Packers. Okay, Dob, like not too bad. It wasn't like, oh my God, this guy sucks. A lot of people thought when they got CMC back, they were just going to automatically just hit the ground running and just go. And which we've seen that. We've been accustomed to seeing the 49ers late in the season find their stride a little bit. But for some reason this year, I just don't see it. I think that they've lost some of that magic, that luster, and it's not because of talent. Like they got talent. Like you look at their roster, Debo, you got George Kittle, you got Christian McCaffrey, you got guys like Fred Warner, you got Bosa, but injuries have really plagued this team. And on top of that, they got a tough schedule, man. You got the Bills this week, then you got the Rams, and then you got the Dolphins, and then you got the Lions and Cardinals. I mean, just looking at that schedule, like maybe you win against the Rams, and maybe you get a win against the Cardinals, but maybe the Dolphins might be tough too. So there's probably 2 or 3 wins in that, and they're going to need more than that to win this division to get past. So, real or not, are they in the danger of missing the playoffs? Absolutely, that's a real. If you believe that they're not in danger, then you are 2 things: you're a complete homer, or you're a complete idiot. And one of those things right now is not really good at this point. So, and I'm not even trying to throw hate on the Niners. It's just the fact that this is a situation. And if they lose this weekend against the Bills, you might just put a fork in them, because I don't think they're going to be able to climb out of that particular hole. And a lot of people are going to be calling for Kyle Shanahan's head. And like I said this last week on my NFL Sunday Wake Up Show, has he been at his best recently? No, absolutely not. But what's the alternative at this point? Yeah, you can maybe bring in a Ben Johnson. I know he's going to be a hot commodity this offseason, right? Maybe he does want to come there. I mean, it'll be a great situation for him, right? But, the Niners are a year older, right? You've seen that their guys are getting injured, right? They're going to be in this whole thing with Brock Purdy. Do they pay him? Can they afford to pay him, right? So will they be in the market for a quarterback? Who knows, right? So there's a lot of unknowns with the 49ers right now, outside of the playoffs. So it's a very interesting dichotomy. Do I think Kyle Shanahan should lose his job? No. Maybe you give him one more year with a healthy roster. I mean, the guy has gotten you guys to 3 or 4 NFC Conference Championship games, 2 Super Bowl appearances. I know people in Dallas would take that right now, right? And I get it. You want to win the big game, but the fact that you guys haven't been the doormats of the NFL is a good thing too, right? So you can easily do that. So, but they're in danger of missing playoffs, absolutely, for sure. All right, Let's take a look at some matchups this week. We'll start off with the Thanksgiving slate games here. Let's start with the Bears and the Lions. That's kicking off in about just a little bit on over an hour in Detroit. And their local or their historical tradition. They're playing on Thanksgiving like the Cowboys. Bears 4-7, dead last in the division, which is crazy to me because just a couple weeks ago, these fools were like 4-2. And I was talking about, well, damn, maybe the NFC North will get 4 teams into the playoffs. Well, that's changed. Depending on what happens today, I would not be surprised if maybe Matt Eberflus loses his job. If they get the doors blown off of them, I would expect him to be gone. Lions doing Lion things, man. Like this is a very good team, poised and ready to dominate. I think they have blood. They taste blood. They want to get back to that NFC Conference Championship game. They do. They absolutely do. And they're playing like that. You can tell that they're just running through teams at this point because they can't wait for the playoffs to come. The Bears offensively still struggling. Caleb Williams, I don't think it's all on him. I think a lot of it has to do with coaching as well too. So I'm not gonna put it all on him. But I do think though he still thinks he's at USC, right? He does wow you with some really talented plays like off script, but in the NFL, you know for a fact that you can't live by that every snap, right? You got to play within the confines of the strategy, and he's not doing that all the time. But anyway, long story short, I got the Lions to win this game to kick off our Thanksgiving Day festivities of football. All right, we got the middle game here, the Thanksgiving Day, another classic. The Dallas Cowboys at home taking on the New York Giants. I believe, is Tommy DeVito starting? I don't know. Why is he starting? I have no idea, right? Maybe the Giants really want to tank, but they got a really good backup quarterback in Drew Lock. You sign him, you give him some money. Why not let him be the starter? But again, it's just another bad decision by the administration there, unless they're trying to tank. Dallas coming off a very, I would say, sturdy, strong win against the Commanders, which is a division rival. The Cowboys right now, 4-7, if I'm not mistaken. They have an opportunity to get to 5-7. I don't know why they would want to win, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, as a former Cowboys fan. Or I guess I'm in purgatory at this point because I still support them, but I'm not a diehard like that anymore. But if I'm a fan, why continue to win? I mean, get a high draft pick, right? Do something. But Cowboys anyway, I think they'll win this game. The Giants are a dumpster fire. I would expect this game to be a little bit closer though, because offensively Dallas ain't great. They needed help last week from special teams in order to really produce. Cooper Rush, better game that he's had in the last couple of weeks since Dak's been out. But this New York Giants defense is a little bit. They on paper they look like they should have been better. But they're not. But I like Dallas at home to win this game, but I think it'll be closer. And then to wrap up tonight's evening, you got the Dolphins taking on the Green Bay Packers. I mean, the temperature is going to be 28 degrees. I don't have to say anything else. I'm going to go with the Packers with that, right? So we all know historically teams that come from the south or from the southern part of the country, and they got to travel to these cold weather areas, especially Tua. It's 28 degrees is cold, man. Like that. And if you ain't used to that, for those who've been to Miami, who live in Miami, man, like the weather is beautiful down there at this time. And then you got to go to Green Bay and play in 28-degree weather when you're more of a finesse team. Although I like what they're doing, maybe they shock the world. Maybe Tua shocks the world and they come out guns blazing. But I just don't know what's going on with that. But I like Green Bay, although Green Bay does scare me a little bit because they're a little bit inconsistent, but I'm going to go with the Packers just because of the temperature. That's the only reason. All right, we got some shout outs here. We got E Macho. He says, W, lock in today. He also says, happy Turkey Day, bro. Hey, appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving Day to you and yours as well. And thanks for dropping a comment in the comment section. Appreciate it. All right, moving on. We got Black Friday. Raiders taking on the Chiefs. The last time these two teams played in Arrowhead on Christmas Day, the Raiders came away with the victory, oddly enough. And guess who's starting at quarterback? Who did that? Aiden O'Connell will return this Friday to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Antonio Pierce is funny, man. Like, I'll give him credit. I'm not a true fan of him being the head coach for the Raiders, but he kept it real. He basically I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but basically he's like, it's the best team in football versus the worst team in football. And he kept it a buck. Now, do I think they're the worst team? No, I think there's some other teams that might be in contention, or, hey, hold my beer for a second and let me do what I do, right? There are teams like that. The Raiders' biggest problem is the quarterback, right? Obviously, the defense isn't playing as good as we thought it probably should have been, because they were supposed to anchor this team and just kind of play field position. They run the football. They haven't been able to do that, right? They still can't find a running back, right? I believe it's Abdullah's. I don't know. But anyway, they travel into Kansas City. The good thing about this is that Kansas City ain't blown out nobody yet, really. Like, if they struggled with Carolina last week on a short week against a divisional rival, they're probably going to struggle a little bit more. Okay. I will say this for the Raiders, Tyree Wilson, there was a sighting for him. He was their rookie DN that they drafted last year. He was looking like a complete bust. Kind of turned it on a little bit last week, right? Even the offense was doing a little bit of something there, even though they did lose the game, but early in the first half, they were moving the football. So maybe some promise there. Now you're playing against a really good defense. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. Is Isaiah Pacheco back today? I thought maybe I read that. Maybe I was tripping, but either way, this is going to be a tough out for them. I still think that the Chiefs win this game. It'll be closer, right? Obviously, but the Chiefs will win this game on Black Friday and continue to roll and try to stay in contention of being the number one seed in the AFC overall, just behind Buffalo Bills, if I'm not mistaken, right? So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Moving right along here. Let's see. We got the LA Chargers on the road taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Listen, a lot of hype was around this team. Now, they've had games where they look really good. Kirk Cousins was getting comfortable. Oh, yes, Pacheco is playing. Appreciate you, Macho. Yep, so good for them. But, yeah, as far as the Falcons are concerned, a lot of hype around this team. I'm not gonna say that I'm completely done with them, right? Obviously, but I don't like the matchup. I think the Chargers defense is playing. I mean, I get it. You lost to Lamar Jackson. A lot of teams lose to this guy. Okay, offensively, Quentin Johnston. I'll just say this: he struggled catching the ball a lot. I believe he had like 6 or 7 targets. He dropped all of them. Like, literally, he had literally 7 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. He is the biggest enigma on this squad, I would say. When he gets it going, they're tough. That's why I'm very surprised that before the trade deadline, they did not make an attempt to maybe go get another wide receiver, because you can't continue to feast off of Lad McConkey, right? He's just a little slot receiver. And no offense to him. He's been great, obviously. But you need your X and your Z guys to go out and make big plays. And Quentin John, other than being like a red zone target at this point, I don't see it, man. I really don't see it anymore. And Will Dissly, the tight end who's come over, I believe from Seattle, fantastic year. They're gonna end, but the problem is you got Dobbins is out. Gus Edwards will probably get more of a workload. This team is gonna have to rely heavily on the run game and really good defense, and I think they'll do so. So with that said, I like the Chargers on the road. It's gonna be a close one. I believe it's like -1.5. But they are the road favorites, so I like them to do that. I think it'll be close. I think a field goal wins this game in the end, but I'm going to go with Jim Harbaugh, and get the win. All right, we got the Cincinnati Bengals at home taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one's interesting because you got one team, really good defense, and the other team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who have been phenomenal this year. Like, Jamar Chase is going to get the Brinks truck backed up to his house, right? Bengals are stupid. They should have just re-signed. I get it, but now he bet on himself, and he's like, dude, I'm killing out here, man. Like, so this is going to be an interesting game because the Steelers cannot score. And that's why I'm a little hesitant to put them as like one of the more contending teams in AFC, only because they can't score. And when they get into the playoffs and you're going to be playing other teams that maybe can score a little bit better, they lost to the Browns, bro. They've had games where you're like, what? You lost to the Browns. You lost to the Cowboys, right? Teams that have not really been able to score, right, a lot at a great clip. So this is an interesting one. I think, honestly, I'm going to go with the Steelers. I think it's going to be close, but I won't be surprised if the Bengals do win this game. But I'm going to go with the Steelers. They are the favorites in this game, I believe. but I'm going to go with the Steelers to win this game only because I believe more in the defense a little bit more. And for some reason, the Bengals just have been cursed late in games, and so they can't get the job done. So, but I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. All right, got Houston, Texas taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is going to be a tough one for the Houston Texans. They're struggling right now, but 7-5, just lost last week to the Tennessee Titans. Jacksonville, don't get me wrong, they're not burning down any buildings right now with their exceptional play at this point. But something always goes down strange late in Duval County. I'm inclined to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this game. Unfortunately, although I am a Texans supporter, something's missing. Something's definitely missing from this team, and it starts with the quarterback play. So I like the Jacksonville Jaguars in the upset at home to get the win. All right, Arizona Cardinals heading over to U.S. Bank Stadium to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Cardinals, listen, they're not sitting on top of the NFC West right now, but they're right there in the mix. They're all right there. I think this environment is going to be a little bit strong for them, although I'm not like all in on Minnesota. If this game was in Arizona, I would say I'm going with the Cardinals, but because they're going to be going into a loud arena with a defense that can maybe get after it a little bit, I'm going to go with the Vikings to get this win here. Although I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining games of the week, but I like the Vikings and their chances at home. All right, New England Patriots at home taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Colts, very disappointing year. Anthony Richardson benched. Now he's starting. I still don't believe in him overall as a quarterback. I don't believe in his team overall anymore. I thought they had the pieces there. So with that said, I like the Patriots, man. I think they're sneaky. Now, the Patriots aren't a great team as well, but I think the quarterback play will be better from Drake May than Anthony Richardson. And I think their defense is a little bit better at this point, and they're at home. So I like the Patriots in that one. All right, Seattle on the road taking on the Jets. Seattle, they're, again, in the NFC West, trying to stay in contention there. That offense with Geno Smith looking to stay on par, right? Obviously, right there. I mean, I think he still leads the league in passing right now, Geno Smith, and he's got an array of weaponry out there, right? And I think they're underrated for the most part, right? We don't really talk about Seattle and their offense, right? A little bit. Maybe it's because they're in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know, but the Jets defense has been struggling since they let Robert Saleh go, right? We thought he was the problem overall, but it looks like he still had that defense in order. Offensively, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, man. Devontae Adams, what a blunder that was, trying to get out of Las Vegas to go there. And reports are saying that Aaron Rodgers wants to play football, but doesn't even want to be in New York anymore. So with that said, I like Seattle to win this game. I know that's a tough trip coming from the Pacific Northwest all the way to the East Coast. But I like Seattle. I think they're the better team at this point. I'm going to go with Seattle to win that game. All right, we got Tennessee Titans and Washington Commanders. This one's going to be an interesting one, too. I think it's going to be a close game. Tennessee looking to maybe play spoiler. I mean, that's their role now down the stretch. They're not going to make any playoffs, right? So in their mind, you're like, you know what? I want to put good tape out there, because if I'm a player on the fringe, maybe I put some good tape out there. I can get picked up next year, get in someone's camp, and also we can play spoiler for some teams that are maybe looking to make a playoff run. And the Commanders, they're reeling after that loss against Dallas. I think they'll be a little bit more motivated. I do like Washington in this one overall. I think they'll find a way to get the job done. So I'm going to go with the Commanders here. All right, Tampa Bay taking on the Carolina Panthers on the road. Carolina, a close loss to the defending champs. Tampa Bay, Mike Evans is back, which is nice for them. Sight for sore eyes for them. And Baker Mayfield. Shout out to Baker Mayfield, man. Like, he may not be like a top 5 quarterback, but he's serviceable, man. He's a really good quarterback. Like, if you're Tampa Bay, you're lucky. Maybe you got a guy like that. I still think injuries really plagued this season for them too, as well. You lose guys like Chris Godwin, but they found some running backs and Bucky Irving, guys like that. So I like Tampa Bay to win this game in a divisional game, but I like Tampa on the road in this one. All right, head down to New Orleans. We got the Saints at home taking on the LA Rams. Rams coming off of a loss to Philadelphia last week Sunday. The Rams, to me, are one of those teams that it's like, they're well coached. That defense is young. Maybe a little bit inexperienced, right? I get that, but they're getting some games under their belt. That offense is something with Puka Nakua, Cooper Cup. They get it going there. I like their chances to maybe win this division, the NFC West, and maybe do something in the playoffs. So, Saints, they had that really nice win for their interim coach, but I think that magic has gone a little bit. I like the Rams on the road in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome to get the win there and stay in contention. All right. Probably the game of the week, Philadelphia Eagles, Monday Night Football, Baltimore Ravens. That's not I'm sorry, not Monday Night Football. Excuse me. Just a regular Sunday afternoon game. But anyway, they head down to Baltimore. Baltimore coming off a really good win in the second half against the Chargers this past Monday night. Philadelphia coming off of a really good win in LA as well against the Rams. Like, this is going to be a test of who doesn't make the most mistakes. Obviously, I believe the Ravens are the most penalized team in the National Football League, and I think that's going to be their downfall. I think they have a good roster. Lamar, Derrick Henry, they got talent, Zay Flowers, but they can't get out of them. They can't get out of the way of themselves. And to me, you can't be the most penalized team and want to go make a deep run into the playoffs to possibly win a championship, because it's going to come back to bite you. So I like Philadelphia. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are one of the more complete teams now. That pass rush is getting going. Now, they did lose Brandon Graham for the year, which is going to be a blow, but I still think it's enough. They're still talented enough to get by. I like Philadelphia in this one on the road. All right, Sunday Night Football. This is a big matchup. It has playoff implications. Implications, because if the Niners lose this game, they're done. Buffalo. They head on the road. They go into Buffalo. Not a very hospitable environment. I don't know the status of Brock Purdy, if I'm not mistaken. I think he might be back. I don't know what the extent of it is. But either way, Buffalo is. I always say this. If you watch my NFL Sunday Wake Up show, I always talk about them. I say, this is one of the more mature teams in national football. Like, Josh Allen is the steadfast there. He will take them as far as they can go, right? He's the catalyst. So on paper, the Niners probably have a better team on paper, right? Stars, you got stars. I said it before, all across, up and down, all aspects of the game. But something is not missing. Something is missing with them this year. I like Buffalo to win this game, and I think they pretty much douse any chance of the Niners getting the playoffs, especially with a loss here. And then finally, to wrap up the week, we got the I'll get to your question here in a second, E Macho, as I do my fantasy impacts here next. Monday Night Football, we got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Denver Broncos. This, honestly, man, like, I like watching Denver. They're kind of fun to watch. Bo Nix is actually kind of fun to watch. I love the defense. Cortland Sutton, one of the most underrated wide receivers we have in the National Football. A lot of people don't even really know who he is, but the guy's steady, man. He gets open, he catches the football, and he's a touchdown machine. So, and I happen to have him on my fantasy team. So I shout out to me for getting him in the waiver wire, because somebody gave this guy up. And I was like, ooh, I got to go get this brother. And sure enough, he's paid off dividends for me. Cleveland, they're a fun little story. The great win in the snow last week against Pittsburgh. But let's just be real. I think Denver's still the better team. They got the better defense. Bo Nix is playing at a really good rate. I like Denver to stay on the winning side there and get the win on Monday Night Football. All right. There you have it. Those are my previews and predictions this week here on NFL matchups. Let me get a little swig of water here. Okay. All right. Before we get out of here, I gotta do my fantasy impact. I know we had some comments here already, so let's go back here real quick. He said, E Macho says, Mixon, it's Portillo, right? This is you. This is my boy Portillo, right? I'm assuming, right? No, I got New York Giants stuff in the back. Oh, but either way, he says Mixon is going to be eaten twice today, yo. Yeah, he might be. And then he says, at the moment, I have a hole in my flex. If he does not play, I have to decide between Judy and Shakir or Waddle. Any advice? It's funny. I do have Waddle. I like what Waddle did last week, right? But it was pristine conditions. They were at home. I'm a little nervous about starting Waddle this week because they're going to Green Bay. And we know Tua does not play well in the cold weather. He just doesn't. Look it up. I don't think he's won a game when the weather is like minus or like below 50 or below, if I'm not mistaken. So nonetheless, I'm putting my boot on the table, and I'm still going to start Waddle because maybe there's a chance that Tua, comes through. We'll see, but Judy, I don't like the matchup for Judy, only because I get it. He's going against his old team, but Denver's secondary is really good. And they're at home, so it's kind of like there's a case for each of them. Khalil Shakur, he's an interesting one too, only because sometimes he doesn't have great games. He is one of Josh Allen's favorite targets. I will say that, outside of like Dalton Kincaid. Keon Coleman had a couple of weeks where he was looking really nice, but then he got hurt, so he's kind of trying to get. So that might be an option too. But there's a case for each three of those guys. I would say I like Waddle only because I think that if the Dolphins have any chance, they're going to have to throw the football. Although the Dolphins offense has been kind of reverted back to running, with Devin Arshane and those guys like that. So, Macho has another question. He says, got Hall and flex, but questionable. I have Judy Shakur and Waddle on bench along with Pacheco. If Paul doesn't play, who would you play in the flex position? So you say Paul. Who's Paul? Am I tripping? Paul. If Pacheco's back, I mean, I kind of like him, man. And, the Raiders' run defense is questionable. Now you're wondering, well, it's coming off of a long layover, and if Hunt does have that toe injury, that does kind of throw a wrench in your game plan, because you're like, well, logically, maybe he won't get. I still think Pacheco will be on a pinch count for sure, but I will say though, if he's around that end zone, I think they're going to go to Pacheco down there. So you might have an opportunity there to get some red zone or some goal line touches there from Pacheco. But if Pacheco's back, I would play him. I would have to play him and just see what happens. He says, with Pacheco coming off IR, I need to drop one of them. Which one would you drop? So you're talking about if you had Judy, Shakur, Waddle, which one would you drop? I would definitely drop Shakur for sure. I think he would be the one I would drop if I had to drop. I've been holding on to Waddle all year because he might pay off dividends. Because he can score touchdowns. So, all right, let's get into my impacts of this week. Appreciate you, though, Macho Man, for chiming in here. Please, I'll do my best to answer your questions. For anyone else too, if you have any questions about fantasy, let me know. If quarterbacks that are still out there right now, if you are in a pinch, you got a quarterback on a bye, Trevor Lawrence is still out there right now, folks. Like, I just looked this morning on my fantasy on ESPN, he's still out there. I'm not saying he's a guy that you can trust down the stretch, but definitely a guy that maybe you could throw in there if you need to pass the time while your guys on a bye week. As far as running backs are concerned, I got Blake Corum as a guy. He's one of those guys too, because Kyron Williams is kind of the main guy there, but Corum does come in from time to time. But if Kyron Williams does miss time for some reason, Blake Corum will be a guy that you would love to have on your bench to put in, because he will get the bulk of the carries, because the Rams do want to run the football. They do. Roshan Johnson, another guy too, who's out there, who I believe obviously can't make trades anymore because the deadline has passed. But if he's out there in the free agency, or if you have him on your bench, he is a goal line, short yardage kind of guy, right? So when you start guys like that, you can't expect him to get a lot of volume. You're just hoping that if the Bears happen to get into the red zone within 10 yards or so, he's going to get the ball, and he's been proven to get you but he's an emergency starter in the event that you have a guy that, is down or is on a bye week. Okay. As far as wide receivers are concerned, hey, shout out to E Macho, man. Appreciate you, bro. David Moore, Carolina Panthers. And my boy Portillo's in here. He says, do I play Tyreek Hill or Sam Laporta? Tough one. Kind of like I was telling E Macho, man, it's tough only because the Packers they take the ball away with guys like Xavier McKinney. It's a cold environment. It's tough, man. If you want to play it safe, yeah, you go with Sam Laporta. I will say this though, Sam Laporta has not had a great year this year from the tight end position for Detroit. So it's kind of boom or bust on either way, because Tyreek Hill too, although he hasn't had the season that we've accustomed to having, the matchup just doesn't pose well for him this particular week. But for me, I'm going with Waddle because I'm just gonna put it on the line, man, and maybe I get lucky. So we'll have to wait and see. So for my guy Portillo, man, like listen, you're a tough guy, right? You ain't scared. You're a Marine. You know what I mean? Just go with Hill. If I'm you, just go with Hill, man. Like I would just go with Hill and see what happens. But it's risk on both sides. It's risk on both sides. So you just hope that the Dolphins get down and they got to throw the ball. And if they throw the ball, that'll favor us for guys that have Waddle or Tyreek Hill. All right. Staying with the wide receivers on waiver wires, David Moore, Carolina Panthers, really good week last week against Kansas City. So again, that's a guy you want to check out. Noah Brown, kind of inconsistent this past year, since coming over from the Texans. But a guy that, he was targeted 10 times last week. So when you look at receivers, the biggest thing you want to look at is targets. How many targets do these guys get? Whether they cash in on them is one thing, but if they're being thrown the football, that means there's opportunity. If there's opportunity, that means there's a chance that they'll cash in. So he's one of those guys. I think he'd be a great pickup if you need a wide receiver 3, maybe even a flex. But he is out there, I believe, in most fantasy football leagues. So all right, tight ends, Hunter Henry for the New England Patriots. He's rostered on 48%, according to ESPN and their fantasy football stats there. New England don't have great wide receivers. So guess what? Tight ends are going to play a big role, especially in the development of a young rookie quarterback. So if you have him, go get him or start him. If not, go get him. Go get him if you can. Zach Ertz is another guy, a young quarterback, maybe not, outside of Terry McLaurin, they don't really have a great wide receivers in Washington. Another guy you maybe want to put in there. He could be a top performer. And as far as defenses are concerned, Tampa Bay's defense has a really good matchup this week against Carolina, of course. Although I was giving praise to Bryce Young earlier in the show, he's still a rookie quarterback, and NFL defenses usually feast on rookie quarterbacks. So if you want to go get Tampa Bay, go get them right now. I think that'll be a good matchup for them this past week. And then another one, the LA Rams matchup against the New Orleans Saints. Although the Saints, they have the propensity of being an explosive offense, they haven't really been consistent enough. So if you're in a bind and you need a defense and you don't have a defense right now, you can go get the Rams and maybe you can get a chance to maybe get the win. So what I like to do when I play fantasy is I look at the matchups from week to week, and I like to get teams, because a lot of people don't think about this, right? I like to find defenses on a week-to-week basis, and even kickers. Why? Because matchups dictate how that team is going. Now, it doesn't always work out for me all the time, but more often than not, I will say I have started about 6 or 7 different defenses this week, and I have gotten double digits for the most part out of all my defenses, because I'm looking for defense that are going to play, the Panthers, the Raiders, even the Cowboys, teams that, Cleveland can hurt you either way when you're playing against them, because Jameis Winston is kind of like a wild card. He can throw for 300 yards, but then he can also throw 3 picks and a strap or a fumble. So it just depends. And for kickers, I'm looking at offenses that struggle in the red zone. Why? Because that's easy opportunities for their kickers to get points for myself. Like last week, I cleaned up with Eddie Pinheiro. I'm not starting him. I forgot who I'm starting this week, but I moved off of him. Why? And maybe Eddie Pinheiro might be a viable option this week, because maybe let's say Carolina does move the ball down the field, right? But they're not scoring touchdowns, and that's good for me, because then if I have a guy like an Eddie Pinheiro who has been solid, I believe he was like 5 for 5 last week, right? He got me like 13 fantasy points. So when you win, fantasy is not always about running backs and quarterbacks. It's where you can steal points in other areas that other opponents that are not looking at. So that's kind of like my little tip for most people there, especially late in the season when you're looking to eke out wins. It's like it's the witching hour. If you ever watch the NFL Red Zone, it's the witching hour where wins become losses and losses can become wins. And you're looking and you're scrapping to get any little bit of points that you can get. So that's what I look at. I always steal points from the kicker and the defense every week, it seems like. And my opponent's like, damn, man, like, how did you get 13 points from your defense when typically defense is average between like 6 and 7 points? So there you have it. So Cool. Appreciate you. Eric Portillo, man. He says you're the man. Appreciate you, man. Happy Thanksgiving Day to you and yours. Um, but that's it, man. That's all I got, man. Listen, but before I close out, man, on a serious note, man, get that out of there. On a serious note, man, listen, this is a tough time for a lot of people right now. I'm thankful for a lot of things, and one thing I'm truly thankful for outside of my family and health is that we have sports. And because right now the way the country is divided and set up the way it is, no matter what side you're on, if you're Democratic, Republican, Trump, Harris, whatever it is, man, sports is literally like the one thing that still kind of unites us all. Now, I know politics have bled over into sports. Not a really big fan of that on either side of the spectrum. But when we could come here from different races, creeds, nationalities, and we can talk about sports and we can forget about everything else that's happening for the few hours that we have, man, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for all of the opportunities that I've had this year and years past and everything that I've done, whether it's professionally, whether coaching and through my family. I'm definitely blessed and I'm grateful and I'm thankful for you guys, those that were in here today watching the show. I appreciate you guys. I do this not just for me, I do this for the people that take the time to watch my episodes and subscribe to me as well. So it's not just about me, it's about you guys, the supporters, the subscribers. So please, if you did like the episode, man, check me out this Sunday. I'll be back again. I'll do my previews and predictions again. Maybe some things will change. Also talk about some other news and notes around the National Football League. So I'll be back here on YouTube at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with my NFL Sunday wake up show. So appreciate you guys. So other than that, man, thanks you guys for all you guys, what you guys do in the chat. Make sure if you drink today, drink responsibly and enjoy your time with your friends and your family. And happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you here from my family here at Clutch Sports Talk, as well as from the Grid Network. And make sure you subscribe to the Grid Network as well. So other than that, I am out of here, man. I got some stuff that I got to go do. Got to hit the gym before I work out or get some food. But appreciate you guys, man. Thanks a lot. And I'm out. Have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving. Peace.